Move in with me, I said, because Tanya Hill was wiping my living room window, like the glass had insulted her mother. She turned in yellow gloves, smiled over one shoulder, and my food bank root bag nearly slipped off my arm. The joke should have died right there, in the clean stripe of sunlight she had carved through my apartment. Except she came back the next morning, with a suitcase, 2 house rules, and no interest in being rescued. I stood in the doorway of my second-floor Hudson Valley apartment, still processing the shift in reality. Yesterday afternoon, I had just finished my delivery route. I was tired. My shoulder ached from lugging canned goods, and my apartment was its usual state of organized neglect. Tanya had been there, dropping off some leftover donation boxes from a client. I didn't ask her to clean. I had just walked in to find her aggressively attacking the grime on my living room glass with a blue microfiber cloth, letting the afternoon sun hit the floorboards for the first time in months. She was wearing yellow gloves, black shorts, and the kind of smile that made my apartment look like it had been waiting for her to arrive. When I made the joke, it was a reflex, a defense mechanism against the sudden, terrifying realization that my living room looked infinitely better with her in it. She had laughed, a bright, bubbly sound, and told me I didn't have enough hygiene points to recruit a roommate. There are jokes a man throws into the air because silence is too honest. That one landed. Between us, sat up and started making plans. The plan began with 3 sharp knocks on my door at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. The yellow gloves were tucked into the side pocket of her floral weekender bag. Rule number 1. Tanya said, not waiting for me to invite her fully into the hallway. She dropped a crisp $50 bill on the small table by the door. I pay for my share of the utilities starting today. Prorated. I stared at the bill. Tanya, what is rule number 2? She cut in, her words coming fast, her chin lifted in a way that told me she had rehearsed this. If I need help, I will ask for it. Do not assume I need saving just because I'm standing in your living room with my life in a bag. She looked exhausted. Her smile was still there, but it was pinned in place. I knew a little about her situation. We crossed paths often at the community center. I coordinated the mobile pantry routes. She was trying to launch a home organizing business called Bright Side Reset. I also knew she had recently cut professional ties with her cousin Pamela, who treated Tanya's labor like a family tax. I didn't ask what happened last night. I didn't ask who yelled or whose couch she refused to sleep on. I just looked at the tension in her shoulders. I have a rule too, I said, keeping my voice flat. Her eyes narrowed. Which is, you get the left side of the fridge. The right side is a historical preservation site for condiments. The breath she was holding rushed out of her in a short laugh. She stepped inside. Deal. That was how the invasion began. My life up until that Tuesday was a predictable loop. I woke up at 5:40 a.m. I drove down to the food bank, loaded the white transit van whose sliding door shrieked like a banshee, and spent the day being the extension cord of the county. I delivered soup to Mrs. Gable, dropped off extra flour at the shelter, and fixed Mr. Henderson's porch step because I happened to have a hammer in the truck. I had a cardboard box in the passenger seat labeled Miscellaneous Kindness, where I threw stray items people might need: extra reading glasses, dog treats, a spare umbrella. I was the guy who made things easier for everyone else. It was easier to carry other people's boxes than to unpack my own. Tanya was a hurricane of aggressive competence. By Thursday, my apartment was no longer mine. It belonged to her label maker. I opened the kitchen drawer to find a neat white sticker that read, Archaeological Evidence of Single Men. Inside were rubber bands, 3 dead AA batteries, and a single chopstick. Very funny, I called out, leaning against the kitchen counter. Tanya walked past me, carrying her plastic cleaning caddy. I call it like I see it, David. You had a soy sauce packet from 2021 in there. I checked the copyright on the logo. It was vintage. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. A real one this time, reaching the corners of her eyes. By then, I had already started doing embarrassing things. I came home 7 minutes earlier than usual. I bought the good coffee instead of the emergency coffee. I stopped dropping my root bag in the middle of the floor, not because she scolded me, but because I liked the way she said progress whenever I remembered the bench. One evening, I found her crouched in front of the freshly cleaned window, taking photos for her business page. Evidence for the police, I asked. Before and after, she said, angling her phone. Your apartment has given me excellent educational material. That sounds like a lawsuit. It's a portfolio. I leaned against the wall and watched the clean glass throw light across the floorboards. You're good at this. At cleaning? At making a place feel like somebody might want to stay in it? Her thumb paused over the phone screen. For one quiet second, the joke left the room. Then she took the photo and stood. Careful, David, she said. That almost sounded sincere. I can take it back. Too late. I already labeled it. She was prepping for Saturday. Christopher, the community center manager, had given her a 2-hour slot on Saturday morning to do a live demo of her Bright Side Reset methodology. It was her chance to pitch her services to the neighborhood to get her own clients to stop being the family's free maid. She spent hours at my small dining table, color-coding her intake forms and organizing her caddy. On Friday afternoon, the illusion of our easy roommate dynamic hit a wall. I was dropping off a crate of apples at the center when I heard a voice that sounded like expensive fabric and condescension. It was Pamela. She was standing by the folding tables, talking to Tanya. It's just a few houses, Tanya, Pamela was saying, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Aunt Susan needs her garage done before the block party. And really, after everything we've done for you, running off to play pretend business is a bit selfish, don't you think? Especially since you're currently couch surfing. Tanya's back was to me. Her hands were gripping her plastic caddy so tightly her knuckles were white. I'm not couch surfing, Pamela. I have an arrangement. An arrangement? Pamela laughed lightly. With the food bank boy? I stepped forward before I could think about it. Actually, I said, dropping the crate onto a nearby table with a loud thud. Pamela jumped. Tanya spun around, her eyes widening. It's not just an arrangement. We're living together, testing the waters. Pamela stared at me, then at Tanya. You're together? It was sudden. Tanya jumped in her voice, pitching up a frantic half-step. She stepped closer to me, her arm brushing mine. Very sudden, passionate. You know how it is, right? I said, trying to look deeply in love and not like a guy holding a clipboard of Apple inventory. I just couldn't let her go. Pamela looked like she had swallowed a lemon. She checked her watch. Well, isn't that convenient? I suppose I'll come by your little presentation tomorrow, Tanya, just to see what you're prioritizing over your family. She turned and clicked away on her heels. The moment the doors closed, neither of us moved. Her arm was still pressed to mine from the performance. I became absurdly aware of her breathing the heat of her shoulder through my sleeve, and the fact that no one was watching us anymore. I took half a step back, not away from her exactly, just enough to give her the space I had almost forgotten to return. Only then did Tanya drop her face into her hands. Oh my God. I panicked, I admitted. You promoted yourself from fake roommate to fake boyfriend in 4 seconds flat. She groaned through her fingers. She's going to tell everyone. Look at the bright side, I offered. I'm a fantastic fake boyfriend. I come with my own van. You used the phrase, testing the waters. I regretted it while it was still leaving my mouth. You called her bluff with relationship fraud. I called her bluff because she was making your work sound small. That stopped her for half a beat. Not enough to let me off the hook, but enough for the anger to lose its sharpest edge. She dropped her hands and glared at me, though the corner of her mouth twitched. "We are drafting an addendum to the House rules tonight, in red pen." The new rule was simple. No improvising major life milestones in front of relatives. But the lie changed the gravity in the apartment. That night, the space felt smaller. I noticed how she hummed when she poured cereal. I noticed that she always favored her left hand when she was tired. I noticed that she never left a dish in the sink, almost as if she was terrified of leaving a footprint. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun wasn't quite up. I walked into the kitchen and saw Tanya's yellow gloves draped over the edge of the sink. I paused. The right thumb had a tear in the rubber right at the seam. I thought about her hands yesterday. When she had gripped the caddy, I'd noticed the skin across her knuckles was red and irritated from the harsh industrial cleaners she used to scrub out the community center bathrooms for extra cash. My instinct was to buy her 5 new pairs, to replace her whole caddy, to fix it. But I remembered rule number 2. Do not assume I need saving. I went out for my early morning route. When I came back, Tanya was sitting on the rug, surrounded by her intake forms. I walked into the kitchen, set down a small paper bag on the counter, and poured a cup of coffee. I didn't say anything. A few minutes later, she walked in to get a glass of water. She stopped at the counter. Inside the bag was a small, clear plastic organizer, a mini version of her caddy. Inside it sat a new pair of yellow gloves, exactly her size. Next to them was a jar of unscented, heavy-duty hand cream, a pack of soft blue microfiber cloths, and 3 protein bars. Tanya stared at it. Then her jaw tightened. The bubbly armor snapped into place. "David, I told you. Look at the bottom of the bag," I said, leaning against the fridge. She frowned, reaching into the paper bag. She pulled out a small printed receipt. "It's $32.40, I told her. "I noticed your glove was torn, and your hands looked sore. I picked these up on my route. If you want them, the receipt is right there. You can pay me back. If you don't want them, I'll return them tomorrow. Your choice." Tanya looked at the receipt, then at the heavy-duty hand cream. The defensive rigidness in her shoulders slowly melted. She realized I hadn't bypassed her rule. I had built a door into it. I gave her the dignity of the transaction. She didn't yell. She didn't throw it back at me. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and set it on the counter. "Keep the change," she said. "Call it a window tax." She picked up the caddy and walked back to the living room. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the $20 bill, realizing, with a heavy, sinking feeling in my chest, that I was in deep trouble. It wasn't because she was pretty, though she was. It wasn't because the apartment looked better, though it did. It was because I had spent half my morning thinking about one torn glove, and the best part of my day was that she had accepted the help without feeling smaller. I didn't just want to be her roommate. I wanted to be trusted by her. I wanted to be the person who noticed her gloves for the rest of my life. That afternoon, Kelsey, my coworker at the food bank, dropped by the apartment to drop off some updated route sheets. Kelsey was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who missed absolutely nothing. Tanya was at the dining table, highlighting a clipboard. "Hey Dave," Kelsey said, tossing the clipboards on the counter. "HR needs your signature on the declination form. They're closing out the file." I froze. "Kelsey, not right now." Tanya looked up, her pen hovering. "Declination form." Kelsey looked between us, sensing the tension, but she wasn't one to back down. "The regional mobile pantry coordinator job, out of Albany. Better pay, a desk, no more wrecking your shoulder on frozen turkeys." He turned it down on Tuesday. "Kelsey," I warned, my voice sharp. "Just get the form signed, Dave," Kelsey sighed, backing out of the door. "See ya, Tanya." The door clicked shut. The apartment was dead silent. Tanya put her pen down. "You turned down a regional job?" "It's not a big deal," I said, grabbing a rag and violently wiping a completely clean spot on the counter. "They need me here. Mr. Henderson's route is complicated, and the new guys don't know how to talk to Mrs. Gable." "It's fine." Tanya stood up. She didn't buy the joke. She walked over to the kitchen island, placing both hands flat on the surface. "You turned down a promotion to stay here and drive the van." "Why?" "Because I like the van." "David," her voice wasn't bubbly. It was grounded, steady and piercing. "I've been living here for 4 days. You don't sleep. You eat protein bars for dinner because you give your actual meals to people on your route who look hungry. You fix everyone's problems so you don't have to admit that you're exhausted." "I'm just doing my job, Tanya." "No," she said, stepping around the island. She stopped right in front of me. I had to look down to meet her eyes. "You're making room for everyone else in the county, so you don't have to ask anyone to make room for you. You don't have to carry it all, David. Being a good person doesn't mean you're not allowed to need anything." It felt like she had reached into my chest and pulled the defensive armor right off my ribs. No one had ever said it to me. No one ever looked past the miscellaneous kindness box to see the guy driving the van. I opened my mouth to make a joke, to deflect, to say something about how I was actually Batman in training. I looked at her face, the sincere, fierce care in her eyes. The joke died in my throat. "If I take that job," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I wouldn't be here to keep an eye on things. I wouldn't be here with you." The subtext hung in the air between us, loud and vibrating. Tanya held my gaze for a long second. Then she stepped back the distance, snapping the tension. "I have to get back to the forms." She retreated. I let her. The next day, Friday, was the family lunch. Pamela had summoned Tanya to a diner downtown, ostensibly to talk things out. Tanya spent 20 minutes pretending she didn't care what to wear, then changed shirts 3 times. "You don't have to go," I said, from the kitchen doorway. "I know." She tucked her hair behind one ear, then immediately pulled it loose again. "I'm going because if I don't, she'll call it proof that I'm avoiding accountability. You don't owe Pamela accountability for wanting a life." Tanya looked at me through the little mirror by the door. "No, but I owe myself one clean no." That was when I understood what she was really fighting for. Not just the demo, not just the business cards. She wanted to hear herself refuse and survive the sound of it. I drove Tanya in the van because she asked me to, and because she asked out loud, I treated the request like something fragile. The silence between us wasn't cold, but it was careful. We were both hyper-aware of the line we had almost crossed the day before. We sat in a red vinyl booth. Pamela arrived 10 minutes late, ordered a sparkling water, and immediately started laying out traps. "So, David," Pamela said, leaning forward, "Tanya tells me you work at the food bank. That's so noble. It must be nice to have a job with so little pressure." "It has its moments." "And it's so generous of you to let Tanya stay in your little apartment," Pamela continued, turning to Tanya. "Though Tanya, really, you can't impose on him forever. Uncle Robert has the spare room above the garage. All you have to do is sort out the basement files on weekends, and it's yours, free of charge." Tanya's hands were under the table. I knew she was picking at her thumbnail. "I'm not imposing, Pamela. I pay rent." "Oh, honey," Pamela patted Tanya's hand on the table. "You don't have to pretend. We know you're struggling. This business of yours, it's cute, but Saturday is just a little community center thing. It's not a real job. Come home. Stop playing house with the delivery boy." The insult to me bounced off. I didn't care, but I saw the light dim in Tanya's eyes. The bubbly armor was cracking under the weight of lifelong family guilt. She looked at me. She was waiting for me to jump in. to play the fake boyfriend, to save her. I felt the overwhelming urge to tell Pamela exactly where she could shove her sparkling water. I wanted to grab Tanya's hand, declare my undying love, and storm out. But I looked at Tanya. I remembered the red pen. I remembered her fierce need to stand on her own. If I fought this battle for her, I would just be another person taking her agency away. I would be rescuing her. So I didn't speak. I slid my hand onto the table, palm down, not touching Tanya, not claiming her, just there, a small, open signal. I'm here if you want me. Then I turned my body entirely toward her, giving her my full attention. I waited. Tanya looked at my hand, then at my face. A subtle shift happened in her posture. She drew a breath, pulled her hand away from Pamela's, and sat up straight. "It's not a little thing, Pamela," Tanya said, her voice shaking slightly before finding its bedrock. "It's my business. I'm doing the demo tomorrow, and I am not moving into Uncle Robert's garage. I'm paying my own way." Pamela's smile vanished. "You're making a mistake, Tanya. If you walk away from family, don't expect us to be there when this fails." Tanya slid out of the booth. "I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Pamela. Or not." I stood up immediately, leaving a 20 on the table for the coffees, and followed her out the door. In the van ride back, the silence was heavy. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, watching the road. I felt a sick knot in my stomach. Had I done the right thing? Had I left her hanging? "I'm sorry," I said to the windshield. "For what?" Tanya asked, looking out the passenger window. "For not saying anything in there. For letting her talk to you like that. I didn't want to overstep." Tanya turned her head. She looked at me for a long time, the afternoon light cutting across the dashboard. "You didn't overstep," she said softly. "You stood right next to me. That's exactly what I needed." We didn't say anything else, but the space between the driver's seat and the passenger seat felt an inch smaller. Saturday morning, the day of the demo. I woke up to the smell of coffee. I walked out in my sweatpants and a t-shirt. The apartment was quiet. Tanya had already left for the community center to set up early. I went to the kitchen island. Next to the coffee pot was my black canvas tote bag. I always packed it the night before. But it looked slightly different. The straps were adjusted. I opened the main flap. Sitting right on top of my clipboard was a brand new pair of thick, heavy-duty yellow work gloves, size large. Underneath them was a neon pink label maker sticker stuck directly onto my plastic clipboard. It read, "Don't be a hero with bare hands." I stared at the pink label. A slow, massive smile broke across my face. The care had come back around without becoming a debt. She was taking care of me, not because she owed me, but because she had noticed. I put the gloves in my pocket, grabbed my keys, and headed out. The community center's multi-purpose room was buzzing. About 20 people were milling around the folding chairs. Some were my food bank regulars. Mrs. Gable was in the front row, with her purse on her lap like she was guarding state secrets. Kelsey was standing by the door, arms crossed, already looking prepared to remove trouble. And in the second row, sitting with perfectly crossed legs, was Pamela. Tanya was at the front. She had set up a fake cluttered corner, using props, a messy desk, an overflowing laundry basket, a tangled box of cables, and a stack of fake mail labeled "Doom" in her blocky handwriting. She was wearing her signature yellow gloves, her hair tied back, holding her clipboard. She looked professional. She looked terrified. She saw me walk in. I caught her eye, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the large yellow gloves. I tapped them against my chest, then gave her a nod. Her shoulders dropped 2 inches. She smiled. Christopher tapped the microphone. "All right, folks, let's get started. Tanya Hill is here to show us her Bright Side Reset system." Tanya stepped forward. The first minute was shaky. Her voice had too much air in it, and she held the clipboard like it might try to escape. Then, Mrs. Gable raised her hand. "Will this help with coupons?" The room laughed. Tanya blinked. Then, her smile turned real. "Mrs. Gable, this system was born for coupons." After that, she had them. She explained that organizing was not about making a house look perfect. It was about making the next ordinary day easier. She showed people how to categorize items, not by where they belonged in an ideal world, but by how often their actual hands reached for them in a real one. Then she got to the demo portion. "I need a volunteer," she said. "Someone who naturally accumulates miscellaneous kindness." Every head in the room turned toward me. I grinned and walked up to the front. I feel attacked by the word naturally. "Okay, David," she said, handing me a tangled box of cables. "Show us how you usually pack this away." I played the part. I shoved them into a drawer and tried to force it shut with my hip. The room laughed. "That," Tanya said gently, moving me aside, "is the David method. It relies on hope, force, and future denial. Available in most bachelor apartments," I added. She shook her head, but she was smiling. For 10 minutes, we worked together. I handed her cables, she sorted them. I held bins, she labeled them. We didn't have to speak much. I knew when she needed the Velcro ties. She knew I would hold the bin steady. We fell into the exact rhythm we had established over the last 5 days in the kitchen. We were finishing up the desk when Pamela's voice cut through the room. "This is all very cute, Tanya," Pamela said loudly from the second row, not bothering to stand. "But organizing a fake desk is easy. It's different when you're just doing the maid work for family because you don't have a real place to live." The room went dead silent. Mrs. Gable gasped quietly. Kelsey crossed her arms, glaring at Pamela. Tanya froze. The pink label maker in her hand trembled. I didn't think. I just acted. I took one step forward, placing myself between Tanya and Pamela's line of sight. Not between Tanya and her victory, between Pamela and the cheap public humiliation she had thrown like a stone. "Pamela," I said. My voice wasn't warm. It wasn't the food bank guy's voice. It was hard, flat, and carried across the quiet room. Tanya's living situation is exactly what she chooses it to be. Her business is real. Her work is real. If you're not here to learn how to fix your own mess, the exit is right behind you. Pamela flushed dark red. She opened her mouth. Then she found one last little knife. "Let's see how long the delivery boy keeps playing house when the free maid stops being useful." This time no one looked away. From the front row, Mrs. Gable said clear as a bell, "Some of us are trying to learn about coupons." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Not at Tanya, at Pamela. Pamela looked around at the faces of the community members waiting for one person to help her turn the room back against Tanya. No one did. The applause started small, then grew around her until her outrage had nowhere left to stand. She grabbed her purse and marched out the double doors. The silence hung for a second. I didn't turn around to check on Tanya. I stepped back out of the spotlight, returning the floor to her. Tanya took a deep breath. She didn't look flustered. She looked liberated. As I was saying, Tanya spoke into the microphone, her voice ringing clear and strong. "The first step to organizing your space is removing the things that no longer serve a purpose." The room erupted again. Mrs. Gable clapped the hardest. After the demo, the room cleared out slowly because people kept stopping Tanya. Mrs. Gable booked a pantry and coupon reset. Christopher asked if she would consider a monthly workshop. A young mother named Erin put down an actual deposit for a kitchen consultation the following week. Tanya held that first deposit check like it weighed 100 pounds. I was stacking the folding chairs in the back when she walked up to me. She had taken the yellow gloves off, holding them in one hand. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. I know I said hoisting a chair, but I wanted to. She stepped closer. She reached out and placed her hand over mine on the metal chair frame. I stopped moving. Rule number 3, Tanya said, looking up at me. Her eyes were bright, stripped of all the bubbly defense. No one gets to turn kindness into a cage. Not my family, and not you. I don't want to cage you, Tanya, I said, my voice dropping. I turned to face her fully, letting go of the chair. I don't want you to stay because you need a place to sleep. I want you to stay because my apartment is entirely too quiet without you arguing with the refrigerator shelves. A slow, beautiful smile spread across her face. I pay rent, David. I know. I'm keeping my side of the fridge. Agreed. And I want you to sign the declination form. I blinked. What? The regional job, she said, stepping into my space, her free hand resting flat against the center of my chest. You don't have to stay the van guy just to prove you're useful. I looked at the schedule last night. Kelsey and I mapped it out. Mr. Henderson's route can be split. The new guys can handle it. I organized your route, David. She had done for me what I couldn't do for myself. She had made room for me to move forward. I looked down at her. You reorganized my life. It's my job, she whispered. I wanted to kiss her. Not because the room was romantic. It smelled like floor wax and stale coffee. But because she had looked at the part of me that kept saying yes until there was nothing left and decided I was allowed to have a future. I didn't kiss her yet. Instead, I covered her hand on my chest with my own, lacing my fingers through hers. It was quieter than a confession and more dangerous than a joke. Okay, I said. I'll sign it, and you'll eat lunch. Let's not get reckless. David. I laughed, then let my thumb move once over her knuckles. Will you come with me when I do? To make sure you don't run? No, I said, because I want you there when I stop pretending I don't need anything. The teasing left her face. She squeezed my hand. Okay, I'll come. On Monday morning, I signed the form. It should have felt like paperwork. A pin, a signature, a badly scanned PDF. Instead, it felt like stepping off a porch in the dark and finding the ground still there. Tanya waited outside the office because she said that part was mine. When I came out, she was leaning against the van with 2 coffees balanced in one hand and my yellow work gloves tucked under her elbow. Well, she asked. I signed. Did the building collapse? Only emotionally. She handed me a coffee. Good. Then we're going to Mrs. Gable's. We are. You promised her a coupon reset. I promised Kelsey I'd make you eat lunch. Everyone is growing today. I laughed, and when she reached for my free hand, it felt like the most ordinary miracle in the world. After that, the shift was quiet. We never had a perfect first date with candles and violins. We had coffee after route maps takeout over invoices, and one late night in the kitchen when our fake boyfriend joke ran out of excuses. She asked, "Are we still testing the waters?" I said, "I think I've been swimming badly for weeks." She kissed me, laughing into it, and the line down the middle of the fridge slowly became less of a border and more of a family joke. 6 months later, the Hudson Valley was covered in a thin layer of autumn frost. I parked my personal car, not the van, in the lot of my apartment building. I had the regional coordinator job now. I had a desk. I had regular hours. I still kept a miscellaneous kindness box in the trunk, but I no longer felt the need to carry the whole world on my shoulders. That morning, I had finally taken the small velvet box out of the miscellaneous kindness box in my trunk. It had sat there for 3 weeks, tucked between spare reading glasses and an emergency umbrella. The only thing in that cardboard box I had ever kept for myself, too. I walked up to the second floor and unlocked the door. The apartment was warm. It smelled like citrus and coffee. The living room was perfectly organized, yet it felt lived in. There were throw pillows, a plant I was actively trying not to kill, and a stack of Tanya's client files on the coffee table. Tanya was standing by the window. She was wearing a gray sweater, her hair piled in a messy bun. She wasn't wiping the glass, she was just looking out at the street, holding a mug of tea. On the wall next to the door, hanging from two perfectly leveled command hooks, was a pair of yellow gloves. I dropped my bag on the bench. She turned around and smiled. It was the same smile from that first day, bright, a little teasing, but now completely unguarded. I walked over to her. I didn't stop a foot away. I stepped right up, wrapping my arms around her waist, pulling her flush against me. She hummed happily, resting her chin on my chest. "How was Albany?" she asked. "Meetings, spreadsheets, a distinct lack of pink labels," I murmured into her hair. I pulled back just enough to look at her. My fingers brushed the small velvet box in my coat pocket. "Hey," I said softly. "Hey yourself," she replied. I looked past her at the window. She had been cleaning the day this all started. The glass was perfectly clear. I was thinking, I said, a slow smile pulling at my mouth. "My lease is up next month." Tanya raised an eyebrow. "Oh, are we breaking rule number 1? Are you kicking me out?" "No," I said. I pulled the box out of my pocket and held it between us. I didn't open it right away. I let her see it first, because Tanya deserved the choice before the surprise. "I was going to ask if you wanted to move in with me," I said. "But that's the wrong question. You already did that once, by accident, and then on purpose every day after." Her eyes dropped to the box. The teasing left her face, but the warmth stayed. I opened it. "So I'm asking this instead. Do you want to build the next place with me? Your name beside mine, your rules beside mine, your business cards on the counter, your shoes by the door, your label maker terrorizing our pantry. Not because you need a room, not because I need to be useful, because we choose each other." Tanya stared at the ring. She didn't gasp, she didn't cry. She just looked up at me, her eyes shining with a fierce, brilliant light. "If this is a rescue," she whispered, "the answer is no, it's not. If this is you trying to become necessary so I won't leave, the answer is also no. I know. If this is a partnership with shared closet space, negotiated condiment borders, and a written agreement that you will not store batteries from the previous decade, I'm listening. Then yes." The word landed softly, then all at once. "Yes!" I laughed, because if I didn't, I was going to make a sound neither of us could label. Tanya reached up, framing my face with both hands. "You don't have enough hygiene points to recruit a wife, David," she whispered. I know I said leaning in until our foreheads rested against each other, but I have references from several satisfied coupon clients. Mrs. Gable does love you. She loves tomato soup. I'm adjacent. Tanya laughed, and I slid the ring onto her finger with hands that were only mostly steady. Then she kissed me. Not a thank you, not a maybe, not a soft little ending to a useful arrangement. A choice. Hers and mine. When she pulled back, she glanced toward the wall beside the door, where the yellow gloves hung from two perfectly leveled hooks. "We're taking the gloves," she said. "Obviously. And the fridge label," I assumed. "And the chopstick." I froze. "You kept the chopstick?" She grinned. "Top drawer, labeled David's emotional support utensil." The woman I loved had moved into my apartment with one suitcase, 2 rules, and no interest in being rescued. Then she had changed everything. Not by needing me, by choosing me and making me brave enough to be chosen back. The first room I ever made space for her in was finally making space for me.